It's the 15th of February 1942, and as the German Axis forces continue to expand across Europe, the Airborne Forces Experimental Establishment is formed. The AFEE was initially based at RAF Ringway as part of 70 Group RAF, with two flying units, A and B. At Ringway, one of the other existing projects that was taken on was the Hefner rotor chute, a rotor kite, an unpowered gyro, that was planned to deliver an armed soldier to the battlefield more accurately and reliably than conventional parachute methods. With conventional parachutes, many paratroopers were blown off course. Using an autogyro, it was believed, would make it more accurate to get troops exactly where they were needed. During 1941, unmanned models had already been completed and ground testing had begun, and some releases from aircraft in flight were also conducted. Manned trials of the rotor chute began in early 1942, towed firstly behind ground vehicles and then behind an aircraft. The original concept proved difficult to achieve with safety and stability, but flights continued to help research and flight characteristics for the follow-on project, the Hefner rotor buggy, an air-towed land vehicle, in this case a Jeep, with autogyro capabilities. On the 1st of July 1942, because of intensive activity at Ringway, the AFEE moved to Sherburn-on-Elmet as part of 21 Group. Development of the rotor buggy took place mostly in 1943, but its planned role was taken over by development of the heavy gliders. In the period between 42 and 44, trials of the rotary ring and parachute developments were conducted at Ringway, Sherburn-on-Elmet, and on attachment to various other airfields, including RAF Snaith, RAF Rickle, and RAF Burn. A large and varied fleet of powered support vehicles were used for the parachute dropping and glider towing. Those included examples of Dakotas, Lysanders, Manchesters, and the Halifax. Gliders tested included the Baines-Bat, Himlicar, Horsa, Hotspur, and Twin Hotspur. I will cover these in further videos. Going back to the rotor chute, the design of a man-carrying machine known as the rotor chute, also known as the Hefner A8, evolved from November 1940 and throughout 41. In September 41, the Central Landing Establishment was renamed the Airborne Forces Establishment, as I mentioned before. The rotor chute Mark I design initially comprised of a tubular steel framework with a single seat and mounted rubber hub, hanging control column, skid undercarriage and self-inflating rear fairing made of rubberized fabric with integral tailplane. The two rotor blades were made of wood and could achieve flapping and coning characteristics via hinges on the rotor hub. Fixed footrests were provided, plus fittings below the seat to accommodate a soldier's weapon, mainly the Bren gun. The control column offered two axes of control, roll and pitch, with turns made by controlled rolling movement. The Air Ministry Specification 1142 was issued retrospectively to describe the outline of requirements. The Ministry of Aircraft Production subcontracted construction of parts to specialist firms including F. Hills and Sons, Airwork General Trading, Dynaflex and Dunlop, and many others. Some full-size rotor trials were carried out using the pivoting ring mounted on a Ford flatbed truck and a full-sized unmanned airframes used in ground-based and in-flight trials. Trials of the rotor chute Mark I were conducted to assess the aerodynamic characteristics while on the truck-mounted rig, with pilot control of the aircraft in forward motion. On the 11th of February 1942, the prototype Rose chute was first mainly flown from a wheeled trolley, while under tow behind a Humber car at Ringway. After starting the rotor by hand, the pilot, Flight Lieutenant I.M. Little, who had experienced flying Avro C-30 rotor autogyros on radar calibration duties. On that and on a subsequent trial, the machine rolled over after landing, sustaining damage to the blades but not to the pilot. A tethered test beneath a barrage balloon and a longer test flight at RAF Snaith were both more successful. The flexible tail section evidently offered inadequate directional stability, and the consequence was the Rose chute Mark II was developed. That had a longer tail section, braced with wooden formers, plus 2 landing wheels mounted below the centre of the gravity. Still based at Ringway, the rotary wing section of the AFE continued to conduct tests on longer runways during attachments at RAF Snaith. On the 29th of May 1942, the first flight of the Rose chute Mark II was achieved, while under tow behind a jeep. Several more tow flights were successful. Meanwhile, the Mark III had been produced, with a tail section comprising of a wooden framework covered in dope linen fabric, plus rigid tailplane. Starting on the 2nd of June 1942, the Rose chute Mark III were flown at heights of up to 100 feet, while under tow behind a jeep, with tow rope lengths up to 300 feet. From 9th of June, successful in-flight releases and landings were achieved, while under tow. On the 17th of June 1942, a Rose chute Mark III was air-towed behind a Tiger Moth on a 300-foot tow line. After 2 towed flights, the Rose chute was released at an altitude of 200 feet and made its first manned free flight and controlled landing. Further free flights were made from altitudes up to 3,900 feet. On the 1st of July 1942, the AFE, as I mentioned, moved its main base from Ringway to RAF Sherburne in Elmet. Additional direction and stability was achieved in the Rose chute Mark IV that produced end plates onto the rigid tailplane. Although the Rose chute concept had proved to be practical, an operational requirement for such a machine never materialised. About 8 Rose chutes were constructed, being progressively converted to Mark III and then to Mark IV spec. They continued to be flown on ground-based and in-flight trials until late 1943 to help research characteristics to follow on in the new project, the Hefner rotor buggy. But more on that next time. The 5th aircraft, P5, was a Rose chute Mark III converted in 1943 to Mark IV configuration and is currently displayed at the Museum of Army Flying, Middle Wallop in England. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.